Okay. One Piece chapter 1094. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, man. Oda's definitely got my attention now. Definitely got my attention. Holy. We have one of the five elders, the Godhead of Science and Defense, St. Jaygarcia Saturn, has appeared on Egghead, and Bonney appears as if she wants to smoke with Saturn. And I'm gonna keep it real. That's probably, in terms of One Piece, probably up there as a top 5 entrance in my opinion, just based off what we've seen, because like the build up towards that, absolutely beautiful. Oda did kind of prove me right on that. It's like, okay, you say that you think Saturn's gonna give the order with the Pacifistas, you're absolutely right. And I like how like the chapter opens up giving you that false hope. And it's one of those things Oda's gotten really good at. Like on one hand, you kind of expect there to be false deaths, and yet at the same time, the way that Oda is able to structure everything, you look at it and you realize like, while somebody like Sentomaru isn't necessarily dead, Stussy isn't going to be dead, it's one of those things where Saturn provides so much of a threat level, so much of an aura, so much of a presence that you kind of overlook it. And that speaks volumes to what Oda's able to do in terms of creating great tension. So we open up the chapter where you see Atlas giving the order and basically saying wipe out all the Navy soldiers on the island. You once again get the diagram with the authority chip where it's Sentomaru, then it's Vegapunk, and then it's the five elders. And you see how Vegapunk is the one that's in white. And it's like, okay, the arrow's pointing upward. You know that we're going to see Saturn step in at some point, and it follows up with that was an order from Vegapunk. This is no good. The pacifists start turning on all the Navy men. They start wiping them out. You get all these beautiful panels of just the damage and chaos that is spreading out. You see the search for Bonney that's taking place, and you see a little bit with Vegapunk and Sanji's interaction. And I will say, I did think it was kind of funny. Like Sanji, my man is super horny, man. Like my man's got horny powers. He's like, Bonney, where are you? And then he locks in. He's like, okay, I found her. So obviously that's Oda continuing the whole thing. Like Sanji has observation hockey, and yet at the same time, when my man's like, I found her, and Vegapunk's like, what are you talking about? That's impossible. And Sanji's like, yo, my powers of lady observation, my lady radar has never been wrong before. Vegapunk's like, hey, I'll just take it on good faith. But this is one of those things where you can look at this and you can definitely see a type of a situation where Oda's using the gag in order to kind of reveal to us that like, hey, Sanji does have observation hockey. So if we take this whole thing moving forward, then most likely Nami probably has Conqueror's hockey just based off of what we've seen her do with that huge presence when she gets super mad and everything. You probably twist and say happiness punch is like a form of that. I can see where Oda's kind of taking that. Like it'll probably be like Usopp with Conqueror's, it'll probably be Usopp with, I almost said Conqueror's hockey, probably Usopp with observation as well, just because of how good of a sniper he is. It's hidden behind gags, but it's actually kind of brilliant that you see that. And so you see Sanji take off and he's bouncing and zipping towards Bonney, and you have Bonney going through and she's doing some of her own battles, and we get a rather awkward shot where Bonnie's got her legs in the air, legs completely spread, booty cheeks in the air, kitty cat halfway showing. She ends up aging some of the men up to a near-death experience, and as Bonney gets ready to start fighting against the remaining soldiers, that's when you see Vice Admiral Bluegrass show up, and she's on top of one of the pacifistas, and because it looks like her father, it makes Bonney freeze up. Sanji steps in and tells Bonney like, hey, you know, you got to snap out of this. I know that that thing looks like your father. It's not really your father though, but it looks like him. You know, you really got to get a grip on yourself, because otherwise you're going to get killed. Sanji ends up taking Bonney and he's holding her in a rather awkward position to try and get her onto that contraption she see Vegapunk on. And I'll give Oda this. Again, like it's a fan service shot of Bonney, but it's one of those things where you can see that nobility in Sanji coming out, and it's consistent with his character. And if we'd have been way back in like Fishman Island, Sanji would have had a nosebleed right then and there. We see he's got it in him to actually keep his shit together long enough to actually say, this ain't the time or the place for it. So you are seeing some growth out of Sanji there. And so as that battle's taking place, you have Luffy versus Kizaru continue to rage on. And Kizaru's like, look, you know, I can't continue to waste time with you. Otherwise, I'm not going to fulfill my mission. Luffy's like, yo, 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 hold on a second. That's my mission to stall you. But Luffy's breathing heavy. He's wheezing. And you can tell that, like, Kizaru's probably taking note of that. And so it becomes a war of attrition. And you see that Kizaru clocked it because Kizaru just takes off. So now he's forcing Luffy to start expending more of his energy. And just as you start to see that, all of a sudden, everyone starts feeling this huge presence that has overtaken the island. And you hear the voice say, Pacifist, stand down. And you can see from the outline that it's clearly going to be Saturn. At first, I thought it might have been Emu, and so I took a closer look at it. And what we see is that the Pacifists, they're no longer escorting Vegapunk in them. And you see this huge star, this pentagram that ends up on the ground. It's got all these spies around it. It's like, okay, the 5 admirals are coming. The magic pentagram is on the ground. And then we get the whole reveal that Saint Saturn of the 5 elders has embarked onto Egghead. And so now we're seeing, okay, the 5 elders are the ones that can control all the pacifists over Vegapunk. And so you're starting to see more of that. And in typical Vegapunk fashion, he ends up saying, like, look, you know, we were able to do this before, but the 5 elders, they outrank us for obvious reasons. They're the highest authority we have in the world. We got to get out of here right now. Sanji takes note of the fact that Saturn is starting to come out of the pentagram. And Bonney is the one that looks completely pissed off. Meanwhile, you got Kizaru shooting the shots from above to try and get Vegapunk and them knocked off of that huge cloud that they're riding on. And Luffy finally catches up. Luffy ends up hitting Kizaru with the not straw gun, but the star gun. And Kizaru ends up seeing stars, typical humor, what you see. However, Luffy ends up hitting his limit and Luffy falls down to the ground. And lost in all that humor is the fact that Saturn is looking and he calls him Nika. And it's like, okay, now one of the elders is seeing Luffy up close and personal. Now we're going to see more of why they fear Luffy's true devil fruit power. And as you see Saturn, he's got all these legs, these spider legs kind of moving around. And he's going up to Vegapunk and he's saying, I thought that we had you killed already. Bonney doesn't waste any time. Bonney ends up picking up a sword and she drives it right into Saturn's chest. And it goes back to, like, that's obviously her target. So I kind of want to see what it was that Bonney saw when she saw into Kuma's past, because it's got to have something to do with Vegapunk. It's got to have something to do with Saturn, because that was the ire for her, because she shifted from Vegapunk and just following the authority. It would have to be one of the elders. And the fact that she specifically targeted Saturn, there's something that we're about to see with Bonney and Saturn. It's just a matter of what. And that's gonna be my chapter question, you guys. What do you think it is that Bonney saw with her father and Saturn that has her this riled up? But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.